All right, everyone. So we're getting started with State of Sponge now. We're getting State of Sponge now. And I am just sorting out a little audio. There we are. That's better. Okay, so welcome to State of Sponge 21. I believe, what was it? Yes, that 21st State of Sponge. That's right. Spongy is now 21 in Sponge years and now legally able to consume Flart. Despite warnings on the label to the contrary, as Flart Incorporated does not in fact endorse the consumption of Flart. So, with that out of the way, I'd like to welcome all of our team in attendance today. Just going through the list. We have Evan, who's new on the team, and we'll do an introduction later.
Hello.
Faith.
Hey.
Inscrutable.
Hey ho.
Morph, who is on mute, so I'll say hello for him. And then Vectrix.
Hello.
Yarogorix.
Hello.
And ZML.
Hello.
So that's all the team who are on voice. Oh, and Isokissa3, who is Joni on the Discord and on GitHub, is also joining us, another new member. So welcome to them. So to get things started off, as you've noticed, there's a few changes to the team. And I'd like to start off with a little farewell to Jewel Spiral, one of our leads who departed last year. So he was one of the major contributors to all aspects of Sponge and did have to retire, unfortunately. So we'd like to respect his privacy somewhat, but what we'll say is that he's moved on with his career and had to put his time elsewhere and can't dedicate as much as he did to Minecraft, which is fair. This is a volunteer project, and we appreciate all that he's done for the project. He has been an enormous asset to our organization and gone above and beyond numerous times over the past several years. We've actually been here quite a while at this point. So his impact will be continue to be felt in terms of our direction as a modding project, directly in our code base and the API itself. And all of you, I believe, who interact with any of those things, whether you're a developer on the team or contributing to our GitHub or building off the API, will no doubt feel his legacy. So all of us here wish Jewel the best going forward. And yeah, if anyone else in the staff has any comments, we all miss Jewel, but what a contribution. The other thing I would like to mention is that, of course, being a volunteer project, we see some go out, we see some come in. So we rely on the effort and enthusiasm of anyone willing to step up and put their time into the project. Recently, we've just added a couple of new members to our team, Joni and Evan, both of whom I'm sure many of you have seen contributing to our project and community for some time now. So Joni is here on the stage as Isokissa3 and has a little section here for me to read out as an introduction for you all. So let's start with that. So, hey, I'm Joni, a computer science student from Finland and the new core developer for Sponge. Some of you may know me for my bucket plugin, WorldGuard, extra flags. I have been following the Sponge project from the very beginning and still remember trying to use the API in the early days when even Play a Move event was not yet implemented. And that's going back a while now. It's come a long way since, and personally I've used Sponge since API 5 and is happy how the API has been evolving. I've been contributing to the project for some time now, but looking forward to improving the platform even further as a core developer. You may see me around triaging your issues and reviewing PRs, and they're more than welcome. So,
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard to Joni. We're happy to have you. And the other new addition to our team is Evan, who's joined the staff. I should mention Joni joined as a developer. So Evan has joined the staff team. And Evan, I believe you have a little intro.
Yeah. So hi there. I'm Evan. I've been in the Minecraft community now for almost 12 years. And I've been following Sponge also pretty much since the start, back in the Next Step days. Really wanted to get more involved with Sponge after a server that I worked on moved to API 7 back in April of 2021. So I've been trying to be more active in the Discord, asking and answering questions, and I'm really excited to be here on staff. So thank you guys very much for having me.
Yeah, and welcome aboard. So, just to recap on all that, we're always looking at bringing in more talent to the team. as always, contributing to development and documentation and helping our community. So answering questions on the Discord or the forums, all welcome. And we really appreciate anyone who's doing that. It's not just a staff thing. Anyone who contributes to the community is really a member of our broader team. And people who go above and beyond, we invite on to help out. And yeah, well, welcome to our new members. It's great to have you. So following on from that little section there, some of you may have also noticed on our Discord, at least, may have noticed that the leader category has been removed. Like, we still have the leaders highlighted, but staff is now the top of the line.
Yeah, they haven't been executed.
No. This is still here, still hanging around. But essentially, Sponge as an organization has been around a long time. What are we at now? 2023. So this is our, 8th year? Yeah. 9th year. So we've been around 8 years. This is our 9th. So it's been going on for a long time. So we've made the decision recently to overhaul how we operate as an organization. So we're moving towards a more flat structure where team members can take the initiative and drive forward different parts of the project as they're able to. So yes, many of us have been involved in both the Sponge and modding community for some time now, and as is often the case, life can get in the way for certain people at times, and being volunteers, we can't expect anyone to contribute where they have other priorities. So we're taking this approach in sort of flattening out our structure to allow greater flexibility and hopefully take some of the burden off others when they're busy, because these things happen. So hopefully things become a little more dynamic and a lot of people pick up things when they have the time.
Oh yeah, it's going to remove one bottleneck from the system, but also it does mean that, the possibility that we might have a bit more disruptive change happening as PRs get merged, because there's going to be a little less, restraint over it.
Yes. That's something we should be seeing, a lot more PRs being merged in and triaged and whatnot, and we'll go over that very soon. But yes, we'll also be updating the staff page and the docs and just changing things around in due course. And we'll have a bit more to say on this in the next status update. So does anyone have anything else to say on that matter? Okay. Moving on then, over to the development updates. And I believe ZML, you'll be taking the lead on this part.
Sure, yeah, this is my turn to go say a few words. Got a whole bunch really going on now with development from Mojang. They've decided to throw us some more fun changes with their new versioning policy, and they're really picking up the pace internally. So we're going to have to adjust our support strategies in order to keep up. With 1.19.3, Mojang sort of changing their support strategy, so each minor version has more of the technical changes, and we're expecting the major versions like 1.20 and 1.21 to have more just unlocking existing content. So for that, as I'm sure many of you are aware, Forge has kind of had to face this with the release of 1.19.3, and we're going to align ourselves with them. It's going to be basically every current major version, like 1.19.3, is going to be considered kind of the bleeding edge, and then only at 1.20, the .0 releases will be kind of where we declare recommended builds that can be stabilized, and modders can gather on those. And of course, this means there's going to be even more faster releases. And so with the bandwidth the team has right now, we're going to have to consolidate what we support. That brings us over to 1.16.5 API 8. This is kind of getting ready to be wrapped up. SpongeForge, we know it's there and a lot of people depend on it. So we're going to get it to a recommended build and have it be mostly community support once we can get it somewhat stable for you guys. And we're going to focus our development as a team on the latest version, which will be 1.19.3, and work on getting SpongeForge up to that version. So we have experimental builds of Sponge Vanilla on 1.19.3, and once we expand it, hopefully everybody can join in and help out. I think that's kind of all to cover. Anything else from anyone on the team?
That's actually quite good timing. So Mose Mister in the chat asks here, I'll be watching this later, but I do have a question. What is the support going to be with SpongeForge and Vanilla? Currently, it's Vanilla 1.16.5 and 19.3, Forge being 1.16.5. Once 1.16.5 Forge is stable, will work start on 1.19, which I think you've literally just answered that.
Yeah, like we kind of hope to maintain the same level of support for both of them and focus on the latest release. What happened with Sponge Forge is 1.17's release had a bunch of internal changes to Forge, and we just haven't had the time to go update Sponge to handle those changes, because it's all with the mod loading, and Forge mod loader has had some breaking changes. But once we're up to date, we're hoping to be able to keep up to date on both of them. So our focus will be the latest version, and then any past versions will be still open to PRs as the community is interested in keeping them going.
Yeah. So essentially what that means for everyone is we know it's been a while. We're hoping to get that 1.16.5 release filled out very soon. Of course, very soon. That's open to interpretation. But in the relative sense, at least, we'd like to get 1.16.5 done and sorted and move on and move up to the latest builds. And Forge has also dealt with this. They had a discussion recently regarding how they're going to handle things moving forward. And I believe essentially their conclusion was the N-1 version. So the last major release is what they're doing as their LTS. So in this case, like 1.18.2. Whereas the current version is that which is going to be still under a lot of changes. So essentially the way Mojang's changed how they're doing Minecraft updates is that these point releases are essentially some...
is the fact that 1.19.2 and 1.19.3 are almost totally different beasts.
Yeah, so essentially a way of interpreting it now is that Minecraft 1.19.3 is almost a snapshot update in terms of the technical code base changes. So there's quite a bit that's happened under the hood. So what's happening now is Minecraft, they do a major release, which is a big content update. So like 1.19, big content update. And now with their point releases, they're folding in technical changes there, but locking the content changes behind the experimental setting. That means that as modders, we're going to have to deal with those changes on the front end, on the back end, even if those don't necessarily appear. So that essentially means that the current released version, with those minor versions being issued, is essentially bleeding. So there's lots of changes. We can't commit to fixing an API version until it becomes N-1. So essentially, just as a little thought experiment, 1.19.3 API 10, we're working on that. Mojang might introduce more breaking changes, which means our in-progress API 10 may change during the lifetime of 1.19. But when Mojang goes and releases Minecraft 1.20, that means we won't be seeing any more changes under the hood, no more point versions with 1.19. So then we can actually freeze that and ensure the API is stable. So API stability is something that can really only be guaranteed for the N-1 version. And the N version will always be bleeding to an extent. Is that a good summary? Oh, is that Mel or one of the devs answer that?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think that's fairly accurate. It's going to be like, as we add in support for new content and understand how plugin developers want to, use the content, then we'll have to develop new API and refine it. So it will just take a little time to get stable.
Yeah. And I see Lex has put in a chat, so I'll read that out. So Lex from Forge says, the plan is for 1.20.0. We are expecting it to be, for example, 1.19.6, but with the release flag toggled, which means no real code changes. If this is the case, it makes sense for the 1.20.0 as the stable version. And yeah, that's essentially it, I think. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out. I mean, none of us really know how things are going to go until we see 1.20. But that's the general idea that we're working with, and everyone in the ecosystem is going to be dealing with similar things. So it's all an adventure that we're on together.
Which version is the camel from?
I think that's the bit that's hidden currently in the experimental toggle. So it is in 119.3 currently,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I
just the
noticed
content is
because
locked. Yeah.
it's one of the animals you can potentially spawn. So yeah,
Yes, yeah. So that's something we can't necessarily guarantee that we have the stuff that supports the experimental content. So like our API may not necessarily support the camels. Like they may be in the game, but the content is locked on the experimental settings. So if you toggle that flag, we can't really guarantee anything. I mean,
you
ideally,
just have
we'd
to
like
get
to
over
stay
that
up to
hump, I
date.
guess.
Oh dear. Well,
Thank you. I'm here all week.
there's our resident comedian again. Do we have anything else to comment on the dev stuff? Okay, that sounds to be about it. So I would also like to say, because in the chat I'm seeing a few questions pop up. We will be collecting these and answering these at the end. So please feel free to be able to um, put in questions or comments on that, and we will go over these at the end. We appreciate all the questions you can give. It gives us more to talk about, and hopefully more things we can help you all out with. Okay, so moving on from that then, we have the little bit on community. So this is my field. So in community, making a few changes here, again, somewhat related to the organizational ones. So we'll be doing regular monthly SaaS updates. So before we were basically putting out SaaS updates when we had sort of big changes happening, new version releases and whatnot. Now the plan is to essentially have these about the first weekend of each month. There may be some flexibility to that, but ideally we're hoping to have it at roughly the start of each month. And we're going to be including stuff like all the current pull requests or issues that we'd like to see more feedback on, um, and so forth. So there'll be a lot of stuff essentially telling people, how you can get involved, what the major talking points are, and so on. So hopefully it's a jumping on point for people. Uh, and I'd also like to put out a little call out. So this is something that we're experimenting with, and it depends on the level of traction we see from the community. What we'd like to see is maybe some highlight or guide videos or like forum posts or so on. So essentially, say you have a plugin, doing a walkthrough of how it all works, or potentially you're wanting to set up Sponge with a mod pack. Because I see this quite often, people going through setting up Sponge with mod packs and they'll run into the same sorts of problems. So if there's like a big mod pack, you've gone and set up Sponge with it and you've encountered problems. If you can do like a little walkthrough, whether that is video or text form, explaining all the steps and processes on how to do that. That's the sort of thing we'd like to highlight and link to and promote. Just because this is stuff that our community really needs. So that's a good way to get involved. And again, we'll see what people think of the idea. We're welcome to feedback. People, if you have something that you think would be good to do a walkthrough, a guide on, and you just want opinions, feel free to reach out to me. So Owen on the forums, just ping me in general on the Discord either. And yeah, hopefully we can get some stuff going out there. So one little example potentially was how to set up a RPG server, installing Sponge with X mod pack, that sort of thing. So the next part there is State of Sponge. So this event, we're aiming for this to be a sort of quarterly event going forward. So every 3 months or so.
At least that's the plan, anyway.
That's the plan. We'll see how it goes, but I think we'll be able to manage that. So little events like this where essentially we just hop on, we talk, they're not going to be as big and innovative as some of our other ones.
But you don't have to wait for a major release to get a State of Spun event either.
Yes, they're going to be more consistent. So the plan this year, ideally, is January, April, July, October. We'll see how things pan out, but that's the rough plan. So,
Daily State of Sponge when?
oh dear. Well, anyone's free to broadcast if you're keen. I wouldn't advise it for your mental health, but could happen.
Fair enough.
And the next little point here, so this is something where I would appreciate some feedback from our community. So feel free to
There are no
post
definitive
replies.
plans for this, are there? It's just a
No, there's no plans. We're just going to see what people think. So it has been a while since we've done our little competitions. So we're thinking of kicking these back off again, and we're wondering what people would like to see. So, for example, for plugin competitions, if we run another one of those, is there a particular theme people in the community would like to see? For example, world protection or RPG or so on, economy. Just is there a theme people would like to see for plugin submissions to follow, or specific niches? So, like, is there a specific plugin void that's missing? Is there something that's missing in the ecosystem that you think would really help? Or would you just like a general open entry category and we just pick out any new plugins that have been submitted in the time frame that the competition's open and judge which ones are the most helpful?
This could be particularly useful in the absence of what's considered sometimes the premier plugin of Sponge, which is Nucleus, the utility tool built of plugins, because it hasn't been fully updated to 1.16.5 and now it is in need of a new development team. So yeah, things that would substitute that or alternatively, continue the work on that would be interesting too.
Yeah, that is something like that. That's a big project. If people want to pick that up and step in, that's an interesting one to get involved with.
I mean,
Um,
ideally,
I-
it's such a monster project, it's probably better off being taken over by a team so people can just develop one module each.
yes, yes. It's I mean that's an interesting one for people to sort of poke and prod around in and get familiar with the API. So yeah, essentially what we're looking for is for both getting new people involved and getting existing people to sort of contribute to the plugin ecosystem. If there's anything we should be doing in particular when we run our next competition that people think would help, we're open to feedback. So feel free to reply in the chat or on the Discord or just in general. That's not something we're rushing, but we'd like to try and get something going soon. The other idea that we have, which again, this is an open idea. We haven't fully sorted this out. The potential for dev/docs competitions, I guess. I'm not sure if that's the right word. We're thinking maybe of sending out spongy shirts as rewards for substantial contributors. So I'd be interested to see if people like that idea. Yes, spongy threads, essentially.
I want a sponge.
Or sorry, you go.
I want a sponge suit, man.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I wonder how we'd do that. I mean, we do have our little sponges out there in the audience with their little fits. So we can take inspiration from some of those, I guess. So yes, is there any more feedback on those, or shall we move over to the next point? Okay. Moving over. And someone in the chat's just saying, will there be a VOD? Yes, we should have recordings up. Hopefully. Hopefully, provided all goes well.
Yeah, Twitch, that right?
Yep. And we should be able to back this up elsewhere. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, it's all working out fine. So our next point here is the docs. So Inscrutable, take it away.
Oh yeah, now I get a nice extensive ramble.
Excellent. What we'd love to see.
Our API 8 docs really need a major overhaul, particularly in the plugin development area. Lots of things need to be updated for the changes that were made between API 7 and API 8. If you haven't noticed the churn, then you must have missed something. If you're involved in updating your plugins, and you can help us with a good example or two, just please contact the doc staff and send us a PR or something. I mean, we can actually use that directly. Former leader Dual Spiral had been progressing some good changes in a PR, updating it from API 7 to API 8, and that's sort of languishing because he's departed. So if anyone wants to pick that up and continue, that'd be an absolutely great start. He's gone through a lot of the command stuff already. As for Sponge Forge for 1.16.5, as that matures, we also need to get a better handle on which mods it comes into conflict with. I mean, we know that this is a lot bigger category than it was in 1.12.2. There are a lot of mods that currently conflict with 1.16.5 and do weird things or just plain crash. So we're also seeking contributions on mod conflicts, which could, in theory, be added to an updated incompatibility page. And if you do report such a thing, please make sure you test it with the latest versions whenever possible, and preferably provide some characteristic or diagnostic info so we know what features behave wrong, what does the crash look like, what messages appear in the log, and that sort of thing. Because not only we can be published that in the doc, but that will then help other users avoid the problems and problem mod combinations. And hopefully will also allow our developers to focus on sorting out and correcting the compatibility issues when that's possible. There are a lot of mods, so we may not be able to spot and fix everything, but SpongeForge should eventually operate with most things that don't rearrange Minecraft's internals too much. That's really been the big problem with a lot of things that actually just, wholesale replace parts of Minecraft. That's why we've always had problems with the OTG. That terrain generator just does too much change within Minecraft for us to be compatible at the moment. Okay, we haven't made an official docs release for API 9, 10 or whatever yet, largely because we still have significant work to complete on the 1.16.5 docs, mostly development documentation. Pull requests can still be made for future branches of the docs. Just make sure you flag them for the appropriate API version, but we're not really planning on fully assembling a new version and making it live until we're quite happy with our API 8 docs, because doing multiple versions and supporting them live is beyond our capabilities. It's the very scant editorial staff that we do have. And with that, I'd just like to send out a general invite that, yes, if you think you can write documentation or you think you've got an idea about how you understand a certain part of the API and can at least explain it, jump onto the docs channel or send us a message and we'll do our best to try and turn that into a PR and get some new information out there, because we really need to update the whole docs to the new API for the time being.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good place for people to get involved with if you don't feel confident enough submitting new pull requests where those might cause breaks in the whole system or anything. But if you're a plugin developer and you've worked with these things and the documentation's not quite up to scratch, please submit PRs to the docs and contribute there. That's something where you can really help out, and that makes it really easy to onboard people into the community and get them started. So yeah, working with the docs, I think that's a really important part, and that does need to be brought up to the modern Sponge. So please commit. Feel.
I mean, our API 7 docs are pretty good, so if we can get API 8 docs up to the same standard, that would be excellent.
Yeah, and that's it. So I think concurrently with us pushing for our API 8/1.16.5 release builds, if we can get the Sponge docs also up to essentially release quality and then move on to API 10 and go from there, I think that would be a really good way to tidy everything up quite neatly.
Oh, yeah. And as a commiseration for those people who are concerned about the massive churn between API 7 and API 8, and that certainly includes some people from Engine Hub, the change since then has been a lot less dramatic, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
We apologise for that, but that was necessary.
Yeah, API 7 to 8 was...
There's 4 major versions of change, so, we got stuck with that.
Yeah, it's quite substantial. I mean, essentially, that break, since API 7 was for 1.12, the break started with Minecraft 1.13, which substantially affected pretty much every modding project in existence. That was an enormous change. So API 8 has all those changes. But going from, say, API 8 to API 10, it's honestly quite minor. Hopefully none of the devs disagree with that, but a lot of plugins built for API 8 work just fine on API 10. Some require, minor tweaks or minor updates, but for the most part, it's been fairly consistent. I think it's fair to say.
And I think we could probably say that unless we really need to, we're not going to make anywhere near the amount of change in the API again. I mean, it's only when things are really horribly broken do they really need to be gutted out like that. Minecraft threw the ocean into the game, or the game into the ocean, whichever.
Most of the breakages were basically world generation. That changed a lot.
Oh yeah, world generation's always changing.
And chat is the latest version. That's basically it.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
I think we just about expect a new world gen to handle every single version, don't we?
It keeps things interesting. Okay, so I think that's essentially it for the run over of everything we've been doing and our sort of current plans. So we will move on to the Q&A. And as a reminder, please feel free to post in chat any of your questions and we'll go over them. We have collected a few so far. So some, let's see, gone over a couple already. Yes, we've had the VOD. We've talked about our development changes. Quick Right asks, will there be a Fabric version someday? We've answered that in chat, but for those of you who are catching up on this later, there is a Sponge discussion. Sorry, there's a discussion on the Sponge GitHub talking about this. I think ZML, you're the best to answer this.
Yeah, sure. So I can take that. Basically, we'd love to support every platform and give full proper support, but at the end of the day, there's only so many hours in the day. So, we're dedicating our time to providing a quality implementation for Forge, and we've built a partnership with Forge to do Sponge on their platform over the past, 7 years now?
Yeah, more. I think we're up to 8.
Yeah, you have nothing against a sponge fabric or a sponge quilt or whatever, but it really is a collaboration between our team and theirs. So we've had changes in Forge. There'd be similar changes that would be needed in Fabric or Quilt to support Sponge's loader extensions. So it could happen, but it's not something our team has the time to deal with directly. And it is going to be a lot of work from both sides if someone or some community member wanted to take on the project.
Yes, and Waterpicker follows up here with, wouldn't that just mean no officially developed Fabric version? The project is open source. And correct, anyone is willing to fork Sponge, they're willing to, it's completely fine for you to make a Fabric build of Sponge. If you have the time and effort to put in, please. And
We'd love it.
Yeah, we're willing to collaborate where we can, where we've got the resources to do it. It's just as a project, we obviously have to allocate resources efficiently where we can. If getting a Fabric port of Sponge is really important to you and you're willing to do it, please go for it. We'll do what we can to help. Just don't expect us to be able to support it internally ourselves. But we're happy to collaborate.
Yeah, we're happy to collaborate. Anonymous knows where to find us if they need anything over on that side. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at with Fabric these days.
Yeah, and for those of you unfamiliar with the early days of Sponge, I do recall there were a few independent ports and attempts to do it on different platforms. I think there was even someone making it compatible with Canary or something, if I have that right. Or Glowstone. So it may have been Glowstone.
There is Lantern, which was a full clean room re-implementation of the Minecraft server with Sponge API, and that was kind of a descendant of Glowstone. And even originally, Sponge Vanilla was a community project, and over the years, that kept on being maintained, and eventually became one of the core implementations of Sponge. So it is something where, it will have to start in the community, but doesn't have to stay just in the community.
Yeah. I mean, again, we can't commit to being able to support it independently, but if someone does it, or a team does a great job building it and find out we work well together, they're definitely open to merging efforts. But that's well off. We'd have to see something actually develop there first. But yes, we're willing to help where we can.
Okay, I noticed there's a docs question in there about which just seems to be off base very much. The docs are indeed multilingual and have multiple language versions, although we can only ever link to a given single version for a page, so we usually choose the English version.
Yeah, so the question there, let me just repeat it for anyone watching later. Why are the docs multilingual even though there is just an English version available? I think it is cumbersome to always select the English version. Is multilinguality planned? And yes, we do have a bunch of translations and translators.
29 or 30 languages, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's actual human translators behind these. So English is, of course, the default. I mean, that's just how this project started.
Basically, when we have to pick a page, we have to pick a language to be able to sort of put an example on. So we use English because most of us are speaking English. That's the bias.
Yes. But there's just a little toggle. You can click on that, and there's a bunch of language selections that are available. And also, this is a good opportunity to do a little shout out to all the translators who do all that hard work.
Oh yeah,
And
we've forgotten those two. Yeah, there's an enormous crowd of them. Well, there was when we migrated anyway. So yeah, and it's really up to volunteers to sort of contribute to the translations. I mean, or Google Translate.
yeah, and the human translators are so much better for this. So if there's a language that isn't quite up to scratch or one that we don't have, and you're willing to translate things, please take a look at that or ping the docs team, and they can get you started. So we have so many ways to contribute to the project, and that's another great one. So there's a little question here we did skip over from Venom. Are the Sponges NPCs? This is a subject of a lot of debate. We have one answer here. They're clones made with Flard. I believe there's also theories they may be a artificial intelligence that simply decided that the best course of action is no course of action, hence just standing still. I don't think we really know. But they are actual players. So they're not just NPCs that we've thrown in. They are actual accounts. And I believe they're at we've used those at the Minecon events quite a few times. Oh no, they're being pushed off the edge. Poor Spongies. RIP. Okay, so after that, XT449 asks, is there a good place to learn what can be done to aid general development, programming or not? I have been trying to get back into the Minecraft community on off days, and sponges always seem like an interesting approach. So, might throw to the devs on this. ZML, do you think you can answer this one?
Sure, let me just see. That question was if there's a good place to learn general development, like in terms of learning Java or stuff. There's various courses online. You'll usually find you want to learn Java as a language first, just because Minecraft does a lot of things that are pretty non-standard, and you're likely to get confused if you dive right in without kind of knowing what standard Java is supposed to look like. So I think there's like JetBrains Academy, there's some like edX courses, all those sort of things are good places to start as a bit of a refresher.
Yeah, and I think going from there as well, just in terms of general development, the thing I would recommend probably for if you're interested in getting started with like contributing to say the development of Sponge itself is to play around with the API and develop plugins first. So that gives you an idea of how things work, what we expose, and that's sort of a good thing to get started with before getting into the internals where it can get a bit more complex and a bit more messy. And the other thing there is also contributing to the docs. If you build that familiarity with the system and you're able to explain that to other people, that's really useful. So you don't have to start immediately contributing pull requests to like Sponge Common or Sponge Forge. You can start, with plugins, with the docs, build your confidence there, and then maybe move over to those. And we generally have issues open, stuff we're looking at, or pull requests that people open up and might need feedback. So those are all good places to get involved. Hopefully that sort of answers it. If there's something like more specific you want to ask, please feel free to follow up on that. I'll try and get back to it.
It looks like they were looking more just like how to get started contributing. And I think you did kind of cover that pretty well, Owen, just in terms of do a lot of reading, writing plugins, find things that aren't working or find mods that there's incompatibilities with, and then and then you can go check out Sponge and we can help point you to where you might want to go start resolving those issues you find.
Yeah. So feel free to also, talk to us on Discord. We do have the development channels and just talk in general as well. Those are good places as well to just see what's going on and get started. Really. Yep. Apparently that was a good answer. So excellent. But yeah, feel free to reach out. We're generally pretty helpful. The next question we have here from QuickWrite: is there an idea of using Kotlin or any other JVM language instead of Java, or should Sponge always be based on Java for standardization purposes? This is just being asked out of curiosity and not a need for this. Well, we have had people working with Kotlin and whatnot. So again, Zemel or someone else, if you want to.
Sure, I can take this one on. Kotlin, it's fine if you want to write a plugin in Kotlin. It should work fine, but for Sponge itself, we found that Kotlin really doesn't have the same mature set of tooling for maintaining libraries and ensuring an API is stable. And of course, there's a lot of effort spent on using Java from other JVM languages, but less effort spent on using Kotlin from, say, Groovy or Scala. So, and of course, when Sponge was started, Kotlin barely existed. I don't think it was even released. And Sponge is already written. There's just not worth the time to port anything that's existing over when we already have it working in Java.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. So that's the last question we have copied down there. Let me just check elsewhere if we have any other comments. And for anyone else who's got more questions or comments, please post those in the chat and we'll get to those. Yeah, I think that's most of it. And just going on, so there's some feedback here about the idea for competitions. Anything around essentials like Nucleus or questing would be great contests. So personally, that's a good theme. So yeah, that's something we'll definitely take a look at and probably do a bit more community feedback maybe on the next status update. Just put that out there, maybe do a poll or something and just see where we go from there. Because we'd really like to do that and give people the opportunity to get started. Because I think that's a really good way to sort of invite people in. So a lot of people are a bit wary about contributing and it sort of just lowers that barrier. It's like we want people to commit, make plugins, experiment, and do all sorts of wacky stuff. A lot of us here got started out a long time ago just doing that sort of thing, just playing around, experimenting. I think quite a few, as teenagers and whatnot. In fact, I think that's a lot of our group. We all got started in, well, I think roughly a decade ago for most people.
Yep, just about way back in the Spout days.
Yeah, that came up this week. But yeah, also there's much newer people. So please, feel free to get started, get contributed. Don't feel scared. Reach out if you need help, and we'll do what we can. It's a community project, and yeah, it's all about everyone else. Let's see. Got anything more here? Someone's asked asked in the chat what this is about. This is State of Sponge, which is a little live stream we do, which basically catches people up on the Sponge project. Yeah. So if someone's just wandering into this chat, Sponge is just a modding platform, like a plugin development platform built on top of either Vanilla or Forge, and it's set up to enable a whole ecosystem of plugins in Minecraft. And we've been going on for quite a few years now. So you want to check us out? Take a look at the spongepower.org page or our Discord. And yeah, we're welcome to all that. It's not the usual Minecraft stream on here, I don't think.
Anyway, the keeper's loose now, so we'll have to wrap the event shortly.
Oh dear, yes. Poor players, you might be killed. Hopefully not. So we've got a few more questions here. I'll just go over. Some people just talking about the different JVM languages and whatnot. Sharp shot here. Thank you all for your hard work, guys. Please say it out loud. Needs to be said. Yes, and thank you to everyone in the community who's been supporting this, because it's not just us. It's also everyone here in the community being the reason that we do this. If it wasn't for you lot, we wouldn't be sticking around here and doing this the whole time. It's really rewarding to be able to contribute. And yeah, please feel free to reach out if you want to pitch in and do other things. Venom here, I think for a plugin competition, it should be open to anything, would allow for a large variety of neat plugins to make it to OR and etc. And yeah, I think maybe the idea there would be have an open category and then something in particular. If there's like any little niches that need to be filled, we might have options for that. But yeah, I think having an open category and something might be a good idea. Some more discussion here. All the different VM stuff. Oh, that's contentious. Getting into development stuff. It's always interesting, isn't it? And Caspar, so as someone who has no clue about this stuff and is just curious, it is difficult to bridge things between vanilla plugins and Forge. Might be too broad of a question. No. So that's not a broad question at all. And some devs can probably go over this a bit more. But essentially, the idea of Sponge is to provide a compatibility layer across all that. So you just build a plugin on Sponge API, and we have implementations for Sponge Vanilla and Sponge Forge. So built on top of regular vanilla Minecraft and Forge, and we handle those differences. So if you make an API, like if you make a plugin that builds on an API, it doesn't matter whether you're running Forge or vanilla as the backend there, it should be compatible. Now, issues do arise, and we do have different breaks in different ones, but that's an implementation detail. You should not have to deal with that as a plugin developer. Do any devs want to expand on that?
Yeah,
that seems
correct. Take. Yeah. It's like, yeah, if you do an API, or if you do a plugin that only targets Sponge API, then we do the heavy lifting of weaving together Forge's API and all the events that mods use with the Sponge API and its events. And Sponge API is designed so that if you use just the API, your plugin will already be set up to be aware of modded content.
Yeah, that's a good cover. And a few people in the game have been asking, what's that monster? That's the warden, which is added in this version. So yes, it's sensitive to noise. So if any of you are out wandering around making noise, you might be killed. Hopefully not. But it's a good
really
reminder
good
to stay
control
safe.
agent, isn't it?
Yeah, fantastic crowd control agent. Maybe a bit overzealous in the enforcement, but it's livens things up a little. And that looks to be largely it. I haven't seen any new questions or comments appearing. Oh, one more. Oh, yeah, more discussion on the languages. Yeah, languages are a. I don't think anyone will have an answer to this. I don't think it's really a question. Choice of language is more a personal thing, isn't it? Oh dear, people are looking at doing human sacrifices to the warden. This is concerning.
Be the first time some of our developers have even seen the warden. I mean, every time we add there's new game features, I swear it comes as a surprise to Jeeton.
Yes. That is an interesting thing. A lot of our developers and whatnot probably spend more time developing for Minecraft than they do playing it. In fact, I think that's generally a safe assumption. These are always fun little ways to get expose our developers to what's going on and maybe enable some suffering. But yes. Lex says, can I get a warden for my next convention panel? Seems useful. Yeah. I don't know what the employment fee is.
I think we all want one.
I think that it's a great idea. And yes, TechKid6, who's Evan, has posted in our chat. Feel free to continue this discussion at discord.gg/sponge. So that's our Discord channel, Sponge Powered. And we also have the forums at spongepowered.org. If you have any questions or want follow-ups, please reach out. I'm more than happy to answer. And we've got another question here. Were these dripstones placed to kill the people on the right? Hopefully not, but potentially. Could be unfortunate. So, unless we have any more comments from any of our team, do we want to wrap things up here, I think?
Probably, yeah. I've got to say, it's an impressive demonstration of the 119.3 too. It's not even, more than a few weeks since we've released it, and it's already quite stable. It's puts up with a lot of players and a lot of abuse.
Yes, I haven't shown around on the stream, but you can see down here we've been experimenting. There's a few people in the gallery who've been wandering around, dealing with the warden and whatnot.
Yeah,
And 119. Yeah, sorry.
we wanted people to be silly. We don't really want a lot of protection here. We want to sort of see what you could do and how systems work and how stable it is, and it's been pretty good actually.
Yes, but Sponge Vanilla 119.3 seems fairly stable. Oh, that's brave. I wouldn't be doing that. So Sponge Vanilla 119.3, there are still problems, and we have been going over these. But generally, they're issues with regards to things not quite working correctly rather than breaking issues. So we welcome more people to hop on and try out Sponge Vanilla. If you've got any bugs that appear, please make an issue on our GitHub or check it out on the Discord. And yes, as ZML said, we're also looking at getting SpongeForge 119.3 up and running soon enough. So hopefully we'll have something new for you to play around with. Okay, and with that, I think we will wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for coming to State of Sponge 21. And we'll try and have a VOD and recording up for you fairly soon so other people can get this checked out. But thanks to everyone who's turned up. And yes, we'll hopefully see you at the next one. And please feel free to reach out and talk to us in the meantime. We're always happy to. And with that, I'll call it. Let's all say bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Alrighty, and that's the end. Bye all.